Manishtana Hashana Hazeh. How is this year different to other years? Now this may be the question on our minds as we sit at our Seder. We might contemplate, how is it possible to celebrate our freedom when Israel is still at war? While not all the hostages have yet been released, and we're still traumatized by the horrific events of the 7th of October. Now, as we know, the Seder is all about asking questions, and the most famous are those 4 questions about the peculiarities of the night. Why we eat matzah and maror, what's the reason for dipping and leaning? And we're prompted to ask, why do we do certain things that make us look like we're free people, even royalty, and other things that are complete opposite, that give the impression of being humbled and embittered slaves? On the one hand, we're obligated to dip not once but twice, as is the way of free people and noblemen. But on the other hand, we're obligated to eat matzah, the bread of affliction, the food of slaves. Similarly, we're required to eat maror, bitter herbs, another taste of slavery and suffering, and yet we're all expected not to sit, but to lean, making us appear as free people. On Seder night, we have 2 things that symbolize freedom, dipping and leaning. But we also do 2 things that are the opposite. We eat matzah and maror to remind us of the slavery and the bitterness. And so it's no wonder that the children are confused and ask these questions, because we should all be querying, what are we trying to achieve? You know, the Abarbanel, the great leader of the Spanish Golden Age, asserts that these aren't actually 4 separate questions, but instead they're all restatements of the one and same question. And it's this: how can we celebrate our freedom and recount our slavery at the same time? Put simply, how can it be possible to be happy and sad simultaneously? Surely we're not capable of experiencing contrasting emotions altogether. It's not something the human heart and mind has the capacity to assimilate. And it's certainly for this reason that the Gemara teaches that it would be sufficient just to ask, Marzos, what is this? In other words, what's going on here? None of this makes sense, as we seem totally unclear as to what we're hoping to accomplish at our Seder. And our answer to it isn't just to glibly say, we were slaves to Pharaoh in Egypt and God took us out. But it's an acknowledgement of this apparent contradiction, a realization that we can, and we do, live with this dichotomy all the time. We are able to live with darkness because we know it will be followed by light. We mourn death and destruction in the knowledge that we'll also celebrate birth and rebuilding, just as freedom followed slavery. And so we'll dip the maror in the charoses and temper our sadness with the sweetness of hope for a brighter future. Of course, there may be empty seats at the Seder and pain and sadness in our hearts, but we'll still sing with joy as we relive the miracles of the past and look forward to miracles in the future with our ultimate redemption. May it come soon, because this is the greatest expression of our freedom, and it's certainly something worth celebrating. Eva and I wish you and your family Chag Kasher v'Sameach, a happy, healthy, kosher and peaceful Pesach.